The first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit of time, for those of you who have never seen one of our presentations, just talking about the genesis. And we've already touched on that a little bit. But we're going to spend a little bit of time, and some of this time would have been spent early on with Denny with the video and whatnot. So we'll go into maybe a little more depth than we would have about how did this process come to be? How did we get from where we were to where we are now? And so that's where we'll spend the first half hour or so of our time. Then we're going to talk about the purpose. Why do we believe it's important for everyone to teach tribal history in Washington State? What is the meaning behind it? What is the purpose? What are the benefits for both Native and non-Native students for teaching tribal history? Then this is what will probably be the meat and potatoes of the presentation, which is the resources. What is available to help you teach this information? Because some of you may be very comfortable with local tribal history. For some of you, this may be something that you're not at all comfortable with. And so that's what all of our work has been about, is trying to make local tribal history resources available to as many people as possible in the state of Washington. And so we're going to talk about what materials we've created. And then beyond that, a lot of our curriculum is tied into things that have been developed by other people, both in Washington State and nationally. And so there's a lot of terrific resources available, whether that be from our generated curriculum, from the Indian Land Tenure Organization, from PBS. There are incredible videos available to you. And so this is not something where you should be coming into a classroom blind and scared. This is something that should be a comfortable process for you. And we want to make sure that you're comfortable with the materials so that when you present to other staff members, you can show that confidence and help them be confident in presenting as well. And then finally, the application. So once you have those materials, what do you do with them? How do you get teachers comfortable when they may have never even dabbled in Native history at all, whether that be local tribal history, whether that be nationally U.S. history, whatever the case may be? How do you get people comfortable with that process? And so we're going to talk a lot about applying these materials both in training other people, and then once they get into the classroom, how do we make sure that those things are being taught?
What I'm saying to you as a trainer is that even with limiting, you're going to get those stories spilling over. And there's nothing worse than feeling like, oh my God, I'm running over, and having these powerful, rich stories being told, so you don't want to interrupt, but at the same time, you need to move things along as a presenter. That's part of your job as a facilitator. And so if you start out with talking about, we do have limited time, if you can do 1 or 2 words, usually we get about 30 seconds per participant, and so and that will be okay. So we're going to get into the genesis of the curriculum, how it came into being. And a lot of what you said resonated with me because we want to get this curriculum into the schools, and one of our goals was to put in all of those essential things. So Jerry had mentioned earlier the Tribal Sovereignty Curriculum Advisory Committee, and us getting together with elders, with tribal chairs, with educators, and compiling a list of all that was essential. 2 pages later, we had to make some choices. And it wasn't that we wanted to exclude all that is there. We had Karen talk about how overwhelming it is. In trying to get smaller, we made it bigger, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But realizing as trainers that a social studies teacher has, at best, 180 hours, an entire school year, to be able to teach the entire social studies for that particular grade level. And we are lucky to even break into that 180 hours. As you'll see later in the presentation, there are some schools who are cutting out social studies altogether. And so to be able to put this curriculum in in places, in little nooks and crannies of the curriculum, and empowering teachers to find those places is going to be one of our new charters. I mean, it's just the reality of teaching in Washington State is that we just have limited time. So in designing the curriculum, we realized that. And we couldn't depend on one unit on tribal sovereignty to be taught, because it was so amorphous that there was no way that we could even do a 6-week type of curriculum. I mean, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what we decided to do then is to give teachers choice and take away all of those barriers that prevent teachers from teaching about tribal sovereignty. Those barriers are money and time and resources and attitudes, but we'll talk about that in a bit, to try to get rid of those barriers. And that's what we worked really hard to do as writers and as presenters as well. So from there, we developed elementary, middle, and high school curriculum, and we had 5 essential questions that we'll be talking about.